Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is David Catanoso. He is the Director of Enterprise Cloud Solutions for the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. David, good to have you on.
Good morning. How are you?
All right. So the Enterprise Cloud Solutions just set the scene for us where this where your office fits in the whole IT scheme of VA. And then we'll get into the many activities you're involved with.
So we fall under infrastructure operations, which is under the DevSecOps area of the Office of Information Technology. And so our job is really to build, implement, and operate and deploy the VA Enterprise Cloud and help applications at the VA migrate into that cloud or build new capability in that cloud, as well as provide as kind of a center of excellence for the VA in terms of utilization of cloud technology.
All right. And VA has a long history in cloud. You were one of the early departments, agencies to get into the cloud first era. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So the federal government's journey into the cloud started back in 2011 with the federal CIO's Cloud First mandate. And the VA started looking at that early on. We started forming some teams around 2015. We got more serious about moving applications into the cloud. And one of the first things that we moved was our Office Productivity Suite into Office 365, mainly for email, but we migrated over 450,000 email accounts to the cloud in that time frame, starting around 2016. And that team did a great job. They did one of the largest email migrations into Office 365 ever done. At the same time, we started forming a team to start looking at how could we create an enterprise cloud. Our office was actually formed back in 2018, as you said, the Enterprise Cloud Solutions Office to kind of be that center of excellence. And at the same time, we started standing up the Enterprise Cloud and then began migrating applications ever since.
All right. Describe the Enterprise Cloud for us. Is it a hybrid situation? Is it multiple commercial clouds? What does it consist of? Because you use the singular term cloud, but I have a feeling it's more than one entity.
Sure. We look at it as an enterprise cloud overall, but it's essentially the combination of two commercial CSPs, Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. And we use both of those service providers to deploy applications and host and take advantage of their services.
Now, how do the VA data centers, because I believe VA still operates data centers of its own, are they part of this complex now of a hybrid environment?
Well, they're certainly part of our entire hybrid environment at the VA. We've got lots of applications that run in the data center, many that will probably always run in the data center. We try to put things where they make the most sense to run. And we've got applications today that are hybrid, where they run part in the data center, part in the VAEC as well. So yeah, it's a very complex hybrid environment.
And I want to get back to the Office 365, the cloud implementation of people's productivity suite. You've got now 5 years of history of doing this. And a lot of agencies are still moving that way. And I'm just wondering, in 5 years, on the scale that VA represents, what are some of the lessons you've learned? What are some of the experiences you've had with being a pioneer in this now that you're 5 years into that? I guess no longer an experiment.
Yeah, I wasn't actually part of the team that did the migration, but that team did a lot of great work to figure out how to get off of our Exchange servers and into Office 365. It took a few years to get it completely done and decommission the legacy infrastructure. But I would say that the lesson learned is don't be afraid to do it. I mean, we've had great success doing it. It's worked well. You will run into little bumps and challenges along the way, but you'll be able to power through them and just be confident that you're going to get there at the end of the day, and it's going to work. I mean, during COVID, we actually pivoted from a legacy Skype infrastructure capability to Microsoft Teams in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and was probably one of the largest migrations of anyone to Teams ever. And we did it during the pandemic, and it's worked great. I mean, so you really have to just be confident you can succeed and move forward and don't be frozen, in the starting gate.
And how do you ensure that users don't just simply go as if they had unlimited storage capability, which in some sense they do, but it's not really free and it's not really unlimited?
Well, there are techniques with the CSP and those platforms that you can use to control and govern usage of storage. That manage it by user, and it's pretty straightforward. There's a lot of great tools these systems have that really are taken advantage of now here at VA.
And when you onboard or offboard, people leave and come to the VA, have you found that having this enterprise cloud approach to productivity, to email, to provisioning people has been simpler and faster relative to the old way when you operated Exchange servers?
Yeah, the cloud has given us, and across the board, a lot of capabilities that have just enabled us to improve processes and make it easier for users to do things. And we're doing that every day. Part of our mission is continuous improvement. As part of our IT modernization effort, with the VA Enterprise Cloud is a big part of, is to make sure we maximize and provide the best service possible to our veterans and our frontline staff. And the cloud just gives us more capability, more flexibility to do that, to adapt faster and move. And so where we can take advantage of it, we do, and we're optimizing processes all the time.
And you mentioned the pivot to Teams when the pandemic hit. That is one of the crucial issues that I think a lot of agencies are facing is they got really good at providing good personal productivity solutions to each employee. But with people scattered, that idea of collaboration comes more to the forefront. And you need to make sure that the collaborative tools are equally as capable as the personal productivity tools. And maybe talk about how Teams has helped that, or whatever it is you use in addition to Teams.
Well, we were in a good position going into the pandemic because we'd already had our cloud effort underway and we had already moved to Office 365. So being able to support workers in a remote capability was already in place at the VA. We just had to scale it in a very massive way very quickly. And then we needed to scale the Teams effort out. And that took a bit of effort. But again, we did it in a matter of months when it would have taken potentially, almost a year or two to do that kind of migration under normal circumstances. But it worked well. The platform was able to scale quickly with us, and we had, of course, that like anything at that scale, you're going to have some bumps, challenges. But we got through them, and the team that wasn't our team that did that, but the team that did that did a great job of making sure everybody was successful. And we use it again today. It's made everybody very productive. We haven't had an issue with everybody being working at home, so it's been great.
And I'll make an analogy. Before cloud email, a lot of agencies, even as late as today, had trouble sending an email from, say, the secretary to everyone in the agency. There were these multiple systems. And with cloud email, that's doable now. You can broadcast a email message to everybody for some crucial issue. And I think some agencies have also found, again, on the analogy, that to talk to people, to videocast to people, or to have some kind of a large scale meeting, that has been a byproduct, a positive byproduct of the pandemic, forcing everyone to virtual work.
That's true.
And so my question then, I guess, is, has VA taken advantage of that capability? And what's the biggest meeting you know of that has been held on Teams?
I don't know. I've been in meetings with hundreds of users, so definitely not large size meetings can be held on Teams. We also have a WebEx capability for even larger meetings. And definitely we saw a pattern in the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, very few people would turn their cameras on in meetings. It was mostly audio. Even if we were in Skype or some of the other tools that we had, video conferencing, it wasn't that common. But I noticed a pattern, at least for myself, that within a few weeks of the pandemic started, I was working 7 days a week and those kind of things. People started gradually turning their cameras on, and then it became common practice that you'd be on a call with your camera on, not so worried about, what your background looked like, or, what your desktop looked like. You just were getting work done. And it really works out really well and enables you to sort of bond when you can't be in person. So we definitely take advantage of it with our teams anyway.
And I imagine the direct VA healthcare staff, from physicians, nurses, and physicians' assistants, and the whole panoply of people that make up that part of the healthcare delivery tooth, if you will, probably feel that they have the capability to talk to one another in a much more easy way, enabled way, with these tools than perhaps they might have before, in some sense unifying the agency across the different VISNs. Have you heard reports like that? And
I think that's generally the consensus. These tools are making it easier to work together and to collaborate across the entire organization. No doubt.
all right, so what's coming next then? What are your plans? You mentioned that since the migration to the Office 365, now you're concentrating on other applications moving. What first of all, I guess that requires a inventorying function of everything that could potentially move to the cloud, which, having that inventory, is probably a virtue in itself.
Sure. So just for those who might not know, just to give you an idea, the VA is the second largest federal agency. We've got over 400,000 employees. We are probably a Fortune 9 company. If budget were revenue, we're very large. We've got three major mission areas. Our Veterans Health Administration is one of the largest health systems potentially in the world. It's got over 40 hospital systems, almost over 1,200 clinics across the country. Our Veterans Benefits Administration processes thousands of claims a day, adjudicating things for our veterans. And we've got a cemetery administration that operates over 140 veteran cemeteries in the country, plus all the corporate overhead to manage all that operation. So you can imagine we have a lot of IT and a lot of applications that we would have to inventory and support. We've got approximately 1,000 applications in our inventory system today. Our target is to move approximately 350 of those to the cloud by the end of fiscal year 2024. We've got almost 130 applications in the enterprise cloud today, not to mention things going to SaaS platforms like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics. We use SaaS for things like ServiceNow for our ITSM tool. We're using other cloud-based tools for a lot of things at the VA. So we're definitely migrating things to cloud in a variety of formats. And then we're also looking to get more mature at how we use the enterprise cloud. So a lot of times when we moved to early applications, it was, I wouldn't say lift and shift, because we did take advantage of some of the cloud capability right out of the gate. But as cloud applications landed in our cloud, they immediately began maturing and taking more advantage of cloud native capabilities, starting to move towards containers and microservices, those kind of things. And so we're actually standing up a platform as part of VA Enterprise Cloud on top of it called VA Platform One, which is designed to put a standardized way for VA to containerize applications and to use microservices and really take advantage of all the cloud optimization capabilities that are out there. We have teams using the cloud at various levels, but we're trying to make it more standardized.
Got it. And I just want to delve into one detail here, and that is the electronic health record project. Again, a different part of VA that is working on that to get the Cerner product rolled out across VA. That'll be a multi-year effort, but that is essentially a cloud type of solution, as most large healthcare organizations are moving with their electronic health record. In the meantime, Vista is still operating, still essential to VA, but that is a system that has instances, each one separate to the different areas throughout VA, the different VISNs. So what is the strategy for Vista vis-a-vis the enterprise cloud, if there is one, until such time as, some future point, a decade from now, that might all be retired?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Vista is a key part of our future, and it's going to be around for a while as we roll out the EHRM application, and even parts of it will remain afterwards, because they're going to be working together to deliver services to veterans. What we did almost immediately after forming our office in 2018, leadership we wanted to get some momentum to move applications and prove we could do it. And that was one of the early applications that leadership designated to prove we could run in the enterprise cloud. And so we starting in about fall of 2018, we identified a small Vista system, Valley Coastal Bend in Texas, and we put a Tiger team together to start working very diligently to move that application, that Vista instance, to the enterprise cloud. We successfully did that in May of 2019. It's been running there ever since very well. We subsequently then took on one of the largest VA medical centers in Omaha and moved that one to the enterprise cloud as well. So those two have been operating their production Vista systems enterprise cloud since 2019. We also now have all the disaster recovery for Vistas across the country running in the VA Enterprise Cloud. And we're starting to look now at moving other Vista instances into the cloud as well to take advantage of the benefits those new instances are seeing.
So in many ways, then, what you're describing is a modernization of the old Vista in the cloud.
Sure, not necessarily the application itself, but the hosting infrastructure to improve reliability, performance, scalability, security. With the new executive order on cybersecurity, having things in the cloud helps us be more secure, and Vista needs to be secure. There's all our veteran data in it. We protecting that very seriously, and the enterprise cloud helps us do that. Not that it's not secure where it is, but we just are always trying to reinforce wherever we can.
And Vista, of course, is developed in a language that is almost unique to it. MUMPS, it used to be called, now the M language, and I guess some other hospital systems still use it. And it actually has quite a proud history that
Sure.
people really know about. But did you have to use APIs, or did you have to use some sort of an interface between the cloud services and Vista? And did VA have to develop that, or is that something that perhaps the cloud providers had?
No, actually, it was. Of course, those are things we were all concerned about when we started analyzing this. Will it run in the cloud? Will it be compatible? And quite honestly, we're able to stand up IaaS compute instances and run the Vista software right on operating systems running in the VA Enterprise Cloud. That was not the challenge. We had some challenges related to some of the medical devices that have fixed IP addresses, and the network routing was challenging for some of those. So we had to come up with some creative ways to make sure we could route network devices to ephemeral cloud instances as they might change and scale up and down. So that was one challenge area, but for the most part, it turned out to be fairly straightforward to get the application itself to run. It was a matter of optimizing the number of nodes and infrastructure that we needed to really get the best performance and deliver the service to the medical centers.
And I guess in some ways that would make the Vista instances that are in the cloud available across VA. And that's one of the issues, right? Is say a veteran moves from one place to the other, getting that records to follow the veteran has been an issue. But when the Vista that they originated in is in the cloud, then basically it's wherever they are.
Yeah, we haven't gone to that level of interconnection with Vista yet. It's still operating for just Valley Coastal Bend or for Omaha, for example, but they are available, of course, from all of our Vista systems are available across the VA network. Our VA network is very, very complex WAN environment with, of course, all those locations that I mentioned earlier, all interconnected by a WAN, and our cloud centers or VA Enterprise Cloud instances are also connected to that WAN. So by having it in the cloud, it definitely makes it available everywhere, but that's pretty much a standard thing for our Vistas today.
All right. And what about Vista interoperability with the Cerner project, which is burgeoning, a couple of instances now and some more planned to be rolled out after the review is done and VA feels ready to move forward again with the Cerner project. Is that a topic of discussion with the cloud, that it can somehow enable the interoperability between Vista and Cerner that you're going to need for the foreseeable future?
We definitely believe it's going to be an enabler going forward. We work with all the EHRM team today to make sure we support what they're doing. Many of their applications that feed data in and out of the VA systems are hosted in the VA Enterprise Cloud. And we believe as Cerner's moving, I think they're moving their system to Amazon Web Services. We have things hosted in Amazon. There's going to be some ability to take advantage of that, data gravity in the future. We haven't done that yet, but we see that something we should be looking at in the future. Plus, having all the Vista data in the cloud with the disaster recovery provides some capabilities we're looking at as well.
Now, you are a large client for both of the cloud service providers that you use. They themselves are pretty fierce competitors, which is the way it works in the commercial world.
Sure.
Find though that the interoperability cloud to cloud that VA needs for its mission, which everyone agrees is one of the most critical missions, that the health mission that for veterans that the federal government delivers, do they play nice together?
Yeah, actually, I think we have a benefit at the VA. Our mission to serve America's veterans is pretty unifying. And I think across our vendor ecosystem, our vendors can put that at the top of their list and they really focus on delivering the mission. Sure, you have a couple of dust ups here and there, but both Microsoft and Amazon have worked very well together. And when we have had applications running, across both clouds or interfacing with parts of one application talking to another in either cloud, it's worked. And the performance has been good, and we've had good support from both vendors. So I can't say that we've had a problem with that. And hopefully that will continue in the future.
All right. And earlier you said that the Veterans Affairs Department, the IT staff, identified 1,000 applications. I'm surprised it's only 1,000 across Veterans Affairs.
Well, there's a lot more, but those are the major applications. So those are the major systems. We have much lesser, lower level systems that we also track, but for the most part, those are the big systems that we're looking at, and that's the number we're tracking against.
All right. And you hope to move 350 of those in the next couple of fiscal years.
Correct.
That 1,000. And what's the criteria for who goes first, and how do you decide it's technically ready and so on?
Well, so initially when we started migrating, we were looking for applications that either looked like an obvious fit or had some compelling business reason to go, or a team that was eager to get into the cloud and start working, because we wanted to be successful, demonstrate that we could do it, as well as gain experience, right? So normally what any organization will do, and any consulting team will tell you when you migrate to the cloud, you want to start with some small applications first, you want to pilot it, get some experience, and then gradually get bigger. But because of a compelling business need at the very beginning of our existence in 2018, we took the exact opposite approach. We decided to move some of our biggest, most mission critical systems into the cloud immediately. And it ended up, it was a big bet, but it ended up paying off in the long run, because once we demonstrated they could move and be successful, then it was really a big confidence builder for everybody that, wow, if these will run in the cloud, well, then there's really not anything we couldn't move if we need to, right? Or if it has to move for some good reason.
We're speaking with David Catanoso. He's the Director of Enterprise Cloud Solutions at the Department of Veterans Affairs. And these really large applications that you moved, tell us which ones they were and how the whole process went.
So one of the biggest ones that we moved was our Veterans Benefits Management System, which really supports all of our veteran benefits claims adjudicators across the country. It operates from Puerto Rico to the Philippines. It has approximately 5,000 people any given time during the day working to adjudicate claims. It was a web-based legacy system that was operating in a third-party data center that for economic reasons, we needed to move to a better footing. It also had some performance challenges that we were trying to solve for. And there were some contract deadlines coming up that we wanted to make sure we were able to be in place in the enterprise cloud, and so that we didn't have to pursue the prior contract. So long story short, it was a very creative effort that we came up with. So VBMS at the time had about 800 million documents that it was managing in storage, and we had to move those to the enterprise cloud. So the team that was there and our team, this team really did a great job, came up with a novel way to develop an adapter that could decide could know where the data was. So it's either stored at the legacy provider or an Amazon. And once they built that adapter and put it in place, we immediately started putting all new documents into the enterprise cloud, and the old documents would remain at the legacy data center. So that enabled us to then start a migration of those 800 million documents over a period of time in the new cloud, and just flip a flag basically and say, oh, that document's now on Amazon. It's no longer in the other data center. So without interrupting service to the end user, we could just shift documents over a period of months from into Amazon. And then once the documents were all in place and all new documents were going into Amazon, then we could start working on moving the compute side of the application over, all of its lower level environments, development, pre-prod, and then eventually the production. And then in May of 2019, we cut it over and it was working great from day one. We got great performance. We had some tuning we had to do for network optimization, but we ended up getting a situation where prior to the migration, they deal with a lot of large PDF files and large documents they have to review when they're scanned. And so for a 100 megabit document, it was taking many minutes to download, maybe well over a minute, 2 minutes in some cases. And once we got in the cloud, we got the network optimized, we got it to sub 30 seconds. So it was a huge performance boost on top of everything else. So it worked out very well. That was one example. My Healthy Vet was another large application that migrated the same.
I want to hold up that thought for a minute, because
Sure.
Healthy Vet is a story in itself. This adapter for the documents in the VBMS, that abstracts then for the user where that document might be, and they don't need to go hunting for it. Is that
right? They would just use VBMS as it was normally used, and the adapter would find it, whether it was in the legacy location or in Amazon.
So that allowed, I guess, to move at leisure the 800 million documents of legacy, that you didn't have to do it overnight, so that they're all
exactly. Yeah, and we were able to use a technology from Amazon called Snowball to basically, which way they send a device into your environment, your on-prem environment. You copy the data to it, and then you securely at a FedRAMP high security level move it into your FedRAMP cloud. So we use Snowball to move all those documents from Amazon, from the legacy data center to Amazon.
Yeah, sounds like almost could be an avalanche. So Snowball keeps it in bite-sized pieces, perhaps. And are these documents, do they originate digitally, or are some of them paper that are scanned, or what's the nature of them?
I guess both, right? They come in, the VBMS team gets them in a variety of formats. They're scanned by paper and stored in the enterprise cloud now, or they receive them digitally originally. So they can collect the documents in any format.
And the 5,000 users at a time, they are not only interacting with that system, but they're also interacting simultaneously with a veteran that has a claim.
Exactly, or other VA staff as they research the claim. Sure. So yeah, they're interconnected everywhere.
And you mentioned the performance issues that you wanted to solve. Was that in the downloading of documents to view them? That
was one of them. The other one was just reliability from a networking standpoint, and the connection to the legacy data center was problematic at times. So there were a few things we were solving for in addition to the business case that we had.
Yeah. So with VBMS in the cloud, and eventually all of those documents in the cloud, that would seem to put less burden on the VA's own WAN. Then, I mean, what did you do on the networking side to get that direct connection for users to the cloud?
So for both of our enterprise cloud environments, Microsoft and Amazon, we use their communication technologies. On the Amazon side, it's called Direct Connect, and the Azure side, it's called Express Route. And we have high-speed redundant connections, multiple high-speed redundant connections into both environments to support all the traffic that's back and forth from our on-prem environments and the internet and those cloud environments. And so that did take some pressure, as you said, off the WAN network, because of the fact that now the documents are right there co-located with the application, and it also other applications that are in Amazon can talk directly to it in Amazon, as opposed to having to traverse the LAN multiple times.
And is one of the strategies on the cost side is to keep those documents in the cloud, and you mentioned moving the compute to them, so that you're not downloading all these documents and putting them back all the time, which can get costly.
Sure, exactly. And the cloud also provides native disaster recovery and backup and copies of those documents, as part of the service. So it's a huge benefit to have them in that environment. Plus, they have auto tiering, which enables us to take the older documents that aren't referenced as often, automatically move it to lesser expensive storage to avoid costs.
Got it. So the user then can view the document and interact with it without downloading it.
Well, they download it for the application presents it to them at their local location, but it's all handled automatically by the system. So that was the download times I was telling you about. They do bring it down locally when they work on it, but the application handles that transparently to them. So
Because what I'm getting at is what's your, I guess, strategy for controlling costs of X removing data from the cloud and putting it back? Because the common understanding that I have is that downloading data is expensive and uploading it is almost free.
yeah, I don't want to say that's a myth, but we haven't had an issue with that. I mean, we said there's a cost associated with it, but for all the other benefits, it's really nominal compared to all the other benefits we get from moving to the cloud. So I would say we don't concern or we obviously look at that when we analyze an application, but we haven't found one that we have decided not to move because of that dimension.
Got it. Okay. But on a performance standpoint, moving the compute to the cloud next to the documents that they interact with, that has been a performance benefit.
Oh, absolutely. And we've even seen that with the Vista applications. We stood up an instance of our cloud patient record system, our client patient record system in Vista, right next to the Vista for Valley Coastal Bend, and we saw an enormous performance boost by running the application right there in the cloud next to it and using remote access technology like Amazon AppStream to access the application instead of running it locally. And the performance in that scenario is off the charts. It's very fast.
So whatever data download costs don't come near to what it would cost to invest in the networking and mainframe capacity to get that kind of performance boost in the old way.
Yeah, it definitely helps take the load off of the network. That's for sure.
And having VBMS and in the cloud for the given at a time 5,000 users, does that enable greater remote capability for those users?
Yes, well, they were remote already, but it does make it, I think, a little easier by having the application in the cloud, obviously. So, and we're starting to look at other VDI technologies, virtual desktop interface technologies that would enable, users to use the cloud technologies to work remotely. Amazon AppStream is one example I just described. We're also working with Azure Virtual Desktop and Microsoft Azure. And so, as we bring those desktops into the cloud for the end users, now we're going to see a lot more of the desktop and the applications both running in the cloud, and the user just using a client application to access the screens of the desktop, not actually have the compute running locally.
Yeah, so it might be a good time to invest back into the terminal market again. Who knows? And let's talk about My Health eVet, a signature application that goes back to the blue button days and so forth, when this was all fresh and new to have things online. What's going on there vis-a-vis the cloud?
Well, same story. They moved at the same time as VBMS. They had a very complex application that had to migrate. There was concerns about whether it could perform in the cloud, whether it would be able to be compatible. But the team really dug in with our team, and we rolled our sleeves up, and we spent about 6 to 7 months really working together to figure out how to change the architecture from some of the technology that was required to run it in the legacy data center at the database level to be able to run it in the cloud with a different database technology and still provide the same level of performance and reliability. And again, because we just put our mind to it and charged ahead, and everybody rolled their sleeves up and committed to success, we were able to migrate that at the same time frame within a few weeks of when VBMS migrated. And it was also another successful migration. And of course, the first few months after it was there, we were polishing and tuning and learning where, we have to tune this setting or change that, that infrastructure a little bit. But basically, it's been running there ever since, and they're expanding and improving and taking more and more advantage of the cloud services natively as we move forward.
Is it accurate to say that whereas VBMS is touched only directly by VA employees, My Health eVet is touched by both employees and by the veterans that you serve?
Oh, that's true. Yeah, it definitely, and it provides, the cloud provides, I guess, faster performance for the veterans because there's more access points that they can get to. Over time, we're going to have a TIC 3.0 comes into play eventually down the road. There's going to be more. We won't have the nature of the nature of connectivity today is we use 4 TIC locations to connect from either the internet or the VA on-prem environments up into our enterprise clouds. But as TIC 3.0 capabilities come online, we can use the networks of the cloud providers to provide access to those cloud services, and which spreads the load out across the country and expands performance capabilities.
And in moving My Health eVet, you said it was a 7 or 8 month process to re-architect it, I guess, transfer the code to a new base. Was it also an opportunity to deal with the veterans using it and see what their needs were and perhaps modernize it in terms of its functionality for the users out there, the veterans?
So that was probably done on two tracks, right? The application team still kept up its normal pace, or it was somewhat normal pace of improving the application, making adjustments. At the same time, we were migrating it. So the idea was not to disrupt that, constant modernization of the application itself, but just kind of shift where it was running from. So, without disrupting that effort. Sure, it had some impact, of course, on schedule and some deliverables to time it, with the migration, but the effort was try to minimize that.
What kind of traffic does it get from the outside? How many veterans a day or an hour or something look at My Healthy Vet?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we serve over almost 20 million veterans, and it's a very popular application. So, I mean, I don't have that information. I apologize. Sorry.
Well, what I'm driving at is, did you have a point in time that we're going to cut over and all of the?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We had to do that overnight on the weekend. It was a very deliberate exercise. We started with the lower environments, one at a time. Development environments went first, and pre-production. And then eventually we had a scheduled window to cut the production over with the whole testing regimen that would happen after it cut over, before we would determine it was live and we weren't going to fall back to the legacy system. And then once we cut over, we never looked back.
Yeah. So my sense is that this is a classic migration of a crucial application in a large agency. Did you document all of this? It seems like you could write the book on it, that every other agency in the country would want to read that and kind of learn what you learned.
Yeah, we actually talk to a lot of other agencies, share lessons learned and success stories, and we do document and provide, patterns that we try to follow going forward when we migrate applications. So absolutely, we try to learn from our, every application we move, we learn something new, and we try to leverage that in the next applications.
We're speaking with David Catanoso. He's Director of Enterprise Cloud Solutions at the Department of Veterans Affairs. And the 348 or so applications that you have to go over the next couple of years, that will leave 650. What's the strategy for those? Is that to go to software as a service, or to keep those running natively, or what do you plan to do there?
Well, I think we're doing all that in parallel, right? So some are getting modernized in place, and they're always going to have not legacy, but always going to have very powerful on-prem data centers that are going to serve the needs for their purpose. And then we're going to have these cloud environments that serve their purpose. And then also ultimately we're going to also we are using today, and we're going to expand our use of software as a service. So it's a combination environment, very complex, very hybrid. And those applications will either continue to run where they are and be modernized. Some will be, decommissioned as they're no longer needed. And a new application is going to be built in one of those three locations. So it's a constantly changing environment of applications. But our main goal really is to deliver services to veterans, whatever that takes, and make sure it's world-class and the best service we could possibly deliver.
And in the very beginning of the interview, you mentioned that you are part of the DevSecOps operation at VA in the greater IT panoply there. It sounds like cloud and DevSecOps are somehow joined at the waist, and that development is affecting the cloud and cloud is affecting how development is done.
Yeah, that's true. And cloud enables you to use tools that are very compatible with DevSecOps, and kind of grew up in the cloud environments, CI/CD pipelines and very continual updates, continual releases. And we're trying to get more sophisticated in how we develop code and deploy it, as well as make it easier for developers to get consistent development environments and build code quickly. Low code, no code is something we're looking at the VA. So there's and also using platforms like Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics to deliver solutions very quickly.
Yeah, and just another detail on that point with the My Health eVet, you said that it was architected originally as a database application in the traditional way. What was the code base in it, and what did it end up being?
Well, the code base didn't really change when we migrated. What changed was we had a legacy database infrastructure that we were using to deliver the performance that was necessary in the data center. Because of the hardware that was available in that data center, we needed to use a certain type of database to get the number of transactions per second at the reliability that we needed. And there was concern that we couldn't duplicate that in the cloud, because the software that was running at the legacy data center wouldn't run in the cloud. It wasn't supported by the vendor to run in the cloud. But so we were able to port that over to a different version of the database DBMS system, and use some techniques to do data replication to make it perform as well as we needed to do and provide that reliability. So it was an effort to change the database layer more than the code base. The code base, for the most part, ran in both locations.
Got it. All right. So that's kind of encouraging news, that you don't necessarily have to recode everything to get it in the cloud, but only work at the database layer. I guess that's a challenge in itself.
Yeah, recoding can give you an ability to take advantage of the architecture differences in the cloud that aren't done the same way when you do legacy systems. So microservices, the containerization, things like that. And it's to leverage higher order services. For example, instead of using an infrastructure as a service-based database, you might graduate to a PaaS level database where the CSP is responsible for managing and operating the database system, and you just put your data in it and use the data with your code. So we're trying to move applications to graduate them from the IaaS level up to the PaaS level, as well as change the code base. But really, we found a lot of applications with minimal adjustment could run in the cloud just as well on a Windows or a Linux operating system as they do in a legacy data center
And you
or
mentioned,
virtualized environment.
sure, you mentioned VA Platform One to that point, where you're dealing with containerization and microservices and so forth. Tell us more about what's going on there.
So the idea of Platform One is we're going to create a standard containerization platform that's multi-cloud, right? It's going to run both in our Amazon and Azure environments as well as on-prem. And that's going to give us an ability to move applications once they're containerized to and from those environments fairly readily if we need to. And it may even help with migration of applications because we can containerize them and run them in the on-prem environments, and then potentially, if it makes sense, shift them into one of the cloud providers, or vice versa, depending on the situation. So that the idea is to create a multi-cloud standardized environment to make it easy for developers to come in, get all the tools they need pretty much out of the box, and they can just hit the ground and focus on developing solutions and not ordering servers and trying to figure out what software they have to install and configuring their pipelines and those kind of things. It's hopefully when we get it fully built out, that's what it's going to provide.
And just to back out to the 50,000 foot level here for a moment, our theme in this day of the cloud exchange is the health industry that is part of the federal government. And
Sure.
we're talking to you and we're talking to the NIH. What involvement do the healthcare providing arms of VA have in terms of how you design future applications and what you move to the cloud and what performance parameters are needed? Is the medical staff part of your planning?
Yeah, I think that they're very heavily involved. Our IT organization works very closely with VHA, and they get involved with the application layer. So our team's responsible. Think of us as a giant landlord in the cloud running a skyscraper, and we move applications in as tenants to that skyscraper. And the application teams work very closely with VHA to work on functions and features and develop the applications. But we've even had involvement with the medical teams too. We had a medical staff involved with our Vista migration. They were very instrumental to help us make sure we focused on the performance needs, and that cloud CPRS capability that I talked about before was actually thought of by one of our clinicians that was working on our team. He said, "Can we try this?" And we said, "Sure, we'd be happy to try it." And it turned out to make a lot of sense, right? So we definitely work very closely with our customers whenever we can. That's kind of the whole point of DevSecOps, right? You want to work closely with your customer, iterate quickly, fail quickly, and improve fast, right? So that's the whole idea.
And the Veterans Affairs Department was already a pioneer in telehealth and telemedicine delivery before the pandemic hit. In some ways, it was pretty well positioned to expand it greatly when people could not come in person and so forth. How is telehealth rather enabled by the cloud? And that must be part of the planning too, I'm thinking.
Well, it's a very big part now, and it was a big part before, but was it in the cloud before? Before the pandemic in February of 2020, we were probably doing 25,000, or VA was probably doing 25,000 or so telehealth visits a month. And it was running in our on-prem environment very well. And when the pandemic hit, we had to really expand that capability, as you can imagine, exponentially. And so our infrastructure and on-prem teams worked overnight, weekends to greatly expand the capacity on-prem, but that wasn't going to be enough. So we also, at the same time, in parallel, stood up what we call the Care 2 environment in our VA Enterprise Cloud, which basically enabled us to rapidly expand and almost double our capacity very quickly in a matter of weeks, the telehealth capability. And today, we do over 45,000 visits on some days, as opposed to 25,000 in a month. So telehealth is a big part of what the VA does. I imagine it's going to be here to stay in the future, but most patients are getting comfortable with that mode of care and are comfortable with it. And the VA is delivering great service that way. And as you can see, 45,000 visits a month is a lot of telehealth activity.
Yeah, so the cloud really is elastic.
It is, and it's going to give us the ability to scale that as we need it up and down. Hopefully not to address another pandemic surge, but if we are, we're much better positioned now, of course, than we were a year ago.
And I wanted to ask you about scheduling, because that was a VA issue a couple of years back, and the need. So there's a modernization going on now, a project for a new scheduling system, and that really ties into almost everything the VA does. In some ways, it's more than just sending someone a date and time to come in. What's the status there, and how is the cloud enabling that one?
So we have multiple scheduling systems already running in the VAEC. So the Vista scheduling service runs in the cloud. Decision support tool is part of our community care that runs in the cloud. We've got Vet Ride that runs in the cloud. So there's a lot of scheduling capabilities, applications dedicated to make it easier for veterans to engage with the VA. Plus, there's a lot of inherent scheduling in our existing software like Vista and things. So the cloud's supporting a lot of different schedule modernization efforts, and there's many of them going on in parallel. Because again, our goal is to make it easier for the veteran to get service, and the scheduling obviously is a big part of that.
But new developments, say in the modernization area to update legacy apps, that has a cloud premise.
Absolutely. The new apps are all being developed in the cloud or in low code, no code platforms. That's the way we're going forward. So yeah, all the applications are being developed in a modern way in either a cloud base or in low code or no code environments.
And using those tools, is it VA employees? Is it contractors 100%? Who's doing the coding?
It's both. We have teams that are VA, we have teams that are contractor, combination teams. Our team is hybrid. We have VA employees on our team as well as a large number of contractors that help bring specialized expertise in. And so, yeah, we have a very hybrid environment. But we have about 8,000 people working at OI&T and then another 8,000 contractors, many of which are veterans. Over 60% of our staff are veterans. And so we've got a very diverse environment.
And how have you been dealing with the talent requirements as you move from the legacy databases, data center based, WAN based types of things to cloud development, micro services, containerization, and all of that?
Well, recruiting top talent is always a challenge, and cloud's no exception. The market's very tight. We've solved it a couple ways. We're bringing in contractors where we need to for specialized needs, and at the same time, we're bringing in a lot of training opportunities for existing staff because there's plenty of work to do. Migrating to cloud doesn't mean people are not going to have work to do. Their work may change, they may learn new skills, but there's more than enough work to do every day. And so we're just working on getting our current staff up to speed and trained up in cloud. A lot of them are very excited about learning to do that. And then, of course, we bring in, augment that with contractors whenever we can.
I guess if you were an aging Vista developer, this is a great opportunity to get in on the ground floor of something brand new.
Sure. Absolutely.
And in the final minutes we have, I wanted to ask you about research and biomedical activities that the VA does, which is not that well known to the public, but they are one of the major medical research organizations and not simply delivery organizations. How is that moving to the cloud, and what's your plans there?
So we've got some big plans in that area. Just recently, we've gotten the ability to now move biomedical and research workloads into both enterprise cloud environments, and we're starting to work closely with both communities to see where we can take advantage of that. So it's in the very beginning stages that we're setting up the landing areas now to take those kinds of workloads and putting the controls and governance around it. But I think over the next year, we're going to see many projects start to move in that direction. And that's going to give researchers in particular the ability to take advantage of a lot of the cloud native data analytics and computational science tools that are offered by both CSPs, machine learning and Internet of Things, even for instrumentation. So there's going to be a great capability that both cloud providers bring to the table that our researchers are eager to tap, and we're going to now be able to make that available to them.
And that, I guess, would extend to grantees as well.
Yeah, the entire ecosystem should have an ability to exercise and use those tools. That's our goal.
Technical point, and I'm getting to the edge of my own technical knowledge, but computing resources used to be roughly divided into whether they were oriented toward integer operations or floating point operations, and some were more business oriented, some more scientific oriented. In your experience across the board here with all of these applications we've been discussing, do you find that the cloud, the commercial cloud environment, can handle both scientific and business oriented types of computing, floating point and integer?
Yeah, absolutely. So both cloud providers offer a wide array of computing services. So they've got different classes of virtual machines, essentially, that you can spin up for your needs. They come in various configurations and various compute capabilities. Some have advanced computational capabilities or more or less memory. And that you can balance it, or you can lean more memory, more compute, and different types of compute. A huge variety to choose from. You can really tailor your compute execution for the need of the application, right? So it's a great capability, I think. We haven't had anything that we've run into a problem being able to find the right compute node to use for a problem set.
And in your job, have you asked one of the providers to show me a cloud? Have you seen inside an actual cloud?
I actually had the opportunity to tour one of their actual data centers, which is not normal, right? So very few people get to do it. It's amazing the capability and technologies that they deploy to be able to scale so rapidly and provide such resiliency and such a variety of services in a self-service model, right? So it's pretty incredible when you see it in how it's built in an operation and how they continuously and rapidly expand that as they grow. Both providers have amazing capabilities in that area.
And they don't have hundreds and hundreds of people under that roof running around. A lot of it just runs itself
It
through.
looks pretty. It looks pretty Spartan in terms of number of people. That's true.
All right. Fascinating discussion. I want to thank today's guest, Dave Catanoso, Director of Enterprise Cloud Solutions at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Happy to do it.
And I'm Tom Temin. You're listening to Federal News Network. We'll go back to the studio now for what's next on the Cloud Exchange.